It's a celebration of America's freedom. Welcome to the Mark Scaringi Show. The Mark Scaringi Show is your place for a weekly discussion on making America great again. The important political and legal issues of the day, a celebration of the Constitution, and traditional American values. Mark is a practicing attorney, a former senatorial candidate, a Donald J. Trump-endorsed delegate, and a defender of the Constitution. His goal? To put America first. And now, celebrating America's freedoms, here's attorney Mark Scaringi.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Mark Scaringi Show. This is your place on the dial for constitutional conservatism. This is where we talk about the important political and legal issues of the day from the perspective of putting America first. And thanks for tuning in on WHP 580 and iHeartRadio. If you'd like to watch a prior podcast of the show or read any of my columns on Penn Live or take a look at some great merchandise, including our popular Right to Bear Arms muscle shirt and the We're Glad You're Our Neighbor, Just Please Don't Kill Us yard signs, go to the MarkScaringiShow.com website, and they would make perfect Christmas gifts for friends and family. For more political and legal news throughout the course of the week, don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And by the way, in the interest of Christmas, I'd like to make a public service announcement, and this is directed to all of the gentlemen out there, in particular husbands. And please note this, Christmas is coming. It is just a few days away. It's sometime next week. I'm not sure which day. My wife knows. But husbands, get out there today or tomorrow and buy those Christmas presents for your wife and your family. But your wife in particular, do not wait until Christmas Eve night when you make an excuse, when all of the family is gathered around the fire, and you make an excuse to run out to the Rite Aid to get your wife a Christmas present. Do not make that mistake again this year. That's the end of my public service announcement. And let's get into the political and legal issues of the day. And only the third time in U.S. history, the House of Representatives has voted to impeach a president of the United States. That the House did so on a purely partisan basis with Democratic defections reveals that this impeachment is not only doomed in the Senate, which is preordained, it's doomed in the hearts and minds of the American people. Democrats have undoubtedly scored a major political victory against President Trump, which they sought out to accomplish since the day he was elected and even before. They've indelibly stained Trump's presidency, and that's a shame. Yet impeachment will turn out to be a Pyrrhic victory. It will cost Democrats the U.S. Congress and the presidency in 2020. One poll shows that in recent weeks, Trump has gone from trailing to now leading former Vice President Joe Biden and other prominent Democratic candidates in hypothetical matchups. Why? Well, the House impeachment hearings are over, and the evidence is in. For the first time in our history, a president has been impeached for non-criminal conduct. Even the universally condemned impeachment of President Andrew Johnson included a crime, albeit one fabricated by the opposing political party. Without a crime, let alone a high crime or misdemeanor, the American people did not support the impeachment of Johnson, even though he was unpopular and considered by many to be obnoxious and divisive. He was acquitted. And today, it's déjà vu all over again. After baiting the American people with grave declarations that Trump committed crimes such as bribery and extortion, when it came time to draft the articles of impeachment, Democrats showed their empty hand. Although they did accuse Trump of committing crimes in their underlying report, they omitted them from their articles. Why? Well, because Democrats can't prove it. This sleight of hand only provides further evidence that they are conducting a sham impeachment. Now, not able to prove actual crimes, Democrats charge Trump with what they describe as offenses, abuse of power, and obstruction of Congress, and claim that they're high crimes and misdemeanors and thus impeachable under the Constitution. But they're not. The term high crimes and misdemeanors under English parliamentary law refers to serious crimes or misconduct involving the use of public office to breach the public trust and do grave harm to the nation and its political system. Thus, former President Bill Clinton's lying under oath about sex with his intern was both a crime and misconduct, but in neither case was it a high crime or misdemeanor. He was acquitted. The Democrats' case against Trump, well, that's even weaker. Not only is there no crime or misconduct, but there also aren't true facts, let alone those that would make out a case for impeachment. Let's take a look at them. In Article 1, Democrats allege President Trump solicited the interference of a foreign government, Ukraine, in the 2020 United States presidential election. Yet these ominous words ring hollow. The president asking the Ukrainians to investigate the Biden family is not interfering in the 2020 presidential election. Interfering means preventing, altering, or obstructing. Nor is it jeopardizing the safety of the American people. Yet Democrats, in a Herculean effort to charge the president with something that rises to the level of high crimes or misdemeanors, they make the claim that Trump abused the powers of the presidency by ignoring and injuring national security and demonstrated that he will remain a threat to national security. Really? Do you feel unsafe in your homes and cars and offices today because Trump asked Ukraine to investigate the Bidens? Is America now a threat of being attacked? I mean, it's utter nonsense. Even worse is Article 2. Democrats claim that by defying House subpoenas, Trump has abused the powers of the presidency in a manner offensive to and subversive of the Constitution. Yet the president has the legal right to challenge the legality of the subpoenas. House Democrats should have taken Trump to court, like they did with former President Richard Nixon, so that the legal dispute could be resolved there. This is how our constitutional system, with its checks and balances, is supposed to work. Democrats' decision to deny the president his day in court and to impeach him for asserting his legal rights, that's what's offensive to and subversive of the Constitution. And the icing on this politically baked cake is this. Trump said that he'll ask the Senate to subpoena Biden to testify at his upcoming trial. Biden's testimony is critical to Trump's defense that his conduct toward Ukraine was in the national interest of rooting out corruption, thus revealing that Trump had no corrupt intent. When asked if he would comply, Biden said, "No, I will not yield to what everybody is looking for here, and that is to take the eye off the ball." And not a peep in protest from Democrats, even though Biden's threatening to do what they're impeaching Trump for. The Real Clear Politics average of polls shows a slight plurality of Americans now oppose impeachment. And that number will climb once the articles reach the Senate. Now, if Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi refuses to send the articles there, thus denying Trump his right to defend himself, those numbers will explode in favor of the president. Whatever Pelosi does next, the damage to her party has already been done. Thanks to the Democrats' sham impeachment, Trump and the Republican Party will celebrate a big victory in November of 2020. And there's my opening statement for today. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back right after this.
Now, more of Mark Scaringi on News Radio WHP 580.
And welcome back to the Mark Scaringi Show, your place on the dial for constitutional conservatism. This is the place where we talk about the important political and legal issues of the day. I'm trying to figure out what song that is. Is that a David Bowie song, maybe? I'm not so sure. But in any event, we're back here, and we're talking about the sham impeachment of the President of the United States. And we'll take a quick aside, and we'll repeat our public service announcement because, by the way, you can check us out on Harrisburg 100 Facebook Live or my personal Facebook Live. Or the Mark Scaringi Show Facebook Live, and you can participate and view that way, and you can comment live, and I can see your names popping up on my Facebook screens, and some of you some of you I know are husbands, and we're getting back to our public service announcement, And please note this, Christmas is coming. It's in the next couple of days. As I said before, my wife will inform me which day it is. But get out there now and buy your wife a Christmas present. Do not wait, and Tori's laughing, do not wait until Christmas Eve when you have to kind of manufacture an excuse to leave the party to run out to Rite Aid. So let's get that done now, gentlemen. It's a beautiful day out there. Get out to the mall and buy a nice present for your wife. Okay, that's the end of the second public service announcement of the day. Getting back to our sham impeachment, you've heard my opening statement, and I've talked about how whatever evidence the Democrats presented in the House Intelligence Committee and then the House Judiciary Committee. Interesting note, and we've talked about this before, the Democrats were braying about how they were giving the president due process rights. They were allowing him to have his attorney present and to present witnesses, cross-examine witnesses. But that's not true. The entire impeachment occurred in the House Intelligence Committee. That's where the hearings occurred. That's where the depositions were taken of the witnesses. And at that stage, the Democrats refused to allow the president the right to attend and participate and have his counsel present. They only allowed him when the impeachment moved to the House Judiciary Committee, where they really didn't have hearings. They had law professors opining on the legality of the impeachment and on whether or not the conduct alleged rose to the level of high crimes or misdemeanors. But those are just legal arguments. Those aren't real hearings with fact witnesses. So the Democrats are disingenuous when they claim they gave the president the right to counsel and the right to call witnesses, etc. And that and many other examples that we've talked about in prior shows, that has done significant harm to the House Democrats' impeachment of this president. And it's one of the reasons why the polls have flipped. And now there is a slight plurality of the American people who oppose the impeachment of this president. And in fact, in a key battleground poll, polling Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, Trump now beats all Democratic presidential contenders. That's because of this sham impeachment. Now, to make matters even worse, Nancy Pelosi, stunningly, the day after the impeachment, she declared that, well, she may not send the articles of impeachment over to the Senate. And I've witnessed a lot in politics over the years, and that surprised me. And I haven't been surprised in probably 10 or 20 years about whatever goes on down in Washington, D.C. or up here in Harrisburg. But that was truly remarkable that she made that statement, that she's going to delay or perhaps not transmit the articles of impeachment over to the United States Senate for trial. Nancy Pelosi is thus delaying or denying President Trump the right to a trial, the right to defend himself. You don't get any more un-American than accusing someone of committing a crime or accusing someone of committing a high crime or misdemeanor, bringing a process through and approving those charges, and then denying the accused the right to defend himself at trial. This is going to explode in Nancy Pelosi's face. It's going to explode in the face of the Democrats. This is even more proof that this whole thing is a sham. And this is going to devastate Pelosi and her party in 2020. But again, I'm interested to hear what you have to say. You're welcome to call in at 717-540-0580. That's 717-540-0580. Maybe you think the impeachment was just and proper and rightful, and the Democrats have done the right thing. If so, you're welcome to call in and try to convince me that your position is the correct one. But in my view, it was a sham impeachment. Pelosi's decision to delay or deny transmitting the articles was stunning. I think it's preposterous. I think the Speaker of the House has no authority under the Constitution to insert herself into the Senate impeachment trial. This Speaker has repeatedly defended House Democrats' right to determine the rules for the impeachment of the House. How many times has Nancy Pelosi quoted the Constitution, stating the House of Representatives shall have the sole power of impeachment, She's quoted that many times, and that is true. Democrats controlling the House exercise that power, and they impeached this president. But now, Nancy Pelosi should be quoting the other part of the impeachment provision in the Constitution, which states the Senate shall have the sole power to try all impeachments, not the House. Speaker Pelosi has no role in the Senate trial, none whatsoever. That is crystal clear in the Constitution. Yet Speaker Pelosi intends to violate the Constitution by trying to prevent the Senate from exercising its sole and exclusive power over the trial. Speaker Pelosi is violating her oath to defend the Constitution of the United States. And let's take some calls. We've got lots of people calling in, so we'll hear from Richard from Newville. You're on the Mark Scaringi Show. Richard, go ahead.
Mark.
Yes.
Yes, hi, I'm from Annville.
Oh, Annville, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
How are things in Lebanon County?
Oh, they're doing great. They're doing great.
Very good. It's a wonderful county.
Economy's doing great. I do have a question. Once President Trump is impeached, when it goes to the Senate, now will President Trump still be able to pick a Supreme Court nominee?
Well, if President Trump is convicted in the Senate and he will be removed from office, and he'll have to go, and he will not be able to exercise the powers of the presidency once he is convicted of impeachment. But I would pose this to you. You posed the question by stating that once the president has been impeached in the Senate,
either the Senate or the House.
Yeah,
I don't think the Senate's going to impeach him.
Well, because this is part of the debate going on today. We heard from the liberal professor at Harvard Law School who testified on behalf of Pelosi's impeachment in the House Judiciary Committee. He just wrote an op-ed in Bloomberg. And in his op-ed, he took the position that the president has not been impeached. And so the Democrats do not have the duty to transmit to the Senate the impeachment because he hasn't been impeached yet. And I would beg to differ. I've reached the legal conclusion this president has been impeached. The House of Representatives put up 2 articles of impeachment, voted in favor of those articles. He's been impeached. Now, the issue is whether or not he will be convicted in the Senate. So I think the House of Representatives is duty-bound to transfer those articles of impeachment to the Senate. And in fact, I don't think the Senate has to wait. And we can talk more about this. I've got a couple of other callers. But I don't think the Senate has to wait. And the Senate can act now because this president has been impeached.
Okay, very good. Man.
Okay, Richard from Annville in Lebanon County, thanks for calling. Appreciate that call. And let's see. Next up, we have Mike from beautiful Mount Gretna. Boy, it's lovely down there. How's the weather today?
It's gray and overcast, and another one of the legion of husbands who's out doing
good. Good. You're a good man. You're a good husband. Get it done. I'm telling you, get it done now. So what do you think about the impeachment? Do you agree? Do you think the impeachment was right and proper, or do you think it was a sham?
Well, it's obviously a sham. I just have a little background. I'm a retired Marine Corps chief warrant officer. I have an undergraduate and a master's degree, and I was actually the artist for the Marine Corps, if you can believe that.
Oh, really?
And I'm an old school liberal, which they call a classical liberal, which they've managed over the last decade and a half to turn us into right-wing nutcases. But part of it is I think Nancy Pelosi, like the Democrats, have been relying on quote-unquote experts, which lost in the last election. And so with this sham, impeachment on the House side, they trotted out, no facts, but they brought out all the experts. And I don't think the American public is fooled. And so, I think she thinks this is going to be a dark cloud over Trump, when in point of fact, I think as time goes on, it's just going to show a laser-like glaring light on the hypocrisy and the pettiness, especially the Democrats in the House. And just like I hate to say it, Bill Clinton's impeachment with regards to certain sexual proclivities, and claiming that they didn't, they weren't really adultery, and they sort of cheapened the definition of adultery. I would say that the Democrats have only succeeded in rendering impeachment our most serious constitutional, other than declaring war, in rendering it meaningless. So they've succeeded in what they've been very good at doing, the last at least 2 decades.
Well said, Mike. I appreciate your comments. I've got to take a quick commercial break. That was Mike from beautiful Mount Gretna. Thanks for calling in. You're listening to the Mark Scaringi Show. Stay tuned. We'll be back right after this. And welcome back to the Mark Scaringi Show, your place on the dial for constitutional conservatism. We're talking about the sham impeachment. And I want to thank our listeners on WHP 580 AM and iHeartRadio, and also those who are tuning in on the various Facebook pages. We've got some people who are tuning in from lovely Warren County and Huntington County. Those are beautiful parts of Pennsylvania, truly God's country up there and over there. And we're glad you've tuned in. And thanks to Harry Grace for telling me that it was David Bowie's Modern Love was the song from the last commercial break. So, again, we're here on the sham impeachment, and we've got a few callers here lined up. And I just want to make one more point, and then we'll open up the phone lines again. But what Speaker Pelosi is doing by attempting to intervene in the process that is solely and exclusively placed into the hands of the United States Senate is, in essence, she's violating her oath of office. She's violating the Constitution by withholding the impeachment articles until she concludes that the Democrats will get a fair trial in the Senate. Not only is she violating the Constitution, she fails to understand that the right to a fair trial is a right possessed by the accused, in this case, President Trump. I mean, this is a basic tenet of American law reaching back into American and British history for perhaps about 1,000 years. It's the right of the accused to a fair trial, not the right of Nancy Pelosi to decide whether or not the Senate's rules are fair. This is absolutely absurd. It's unconstitutional and can't be backed up or supported by any Anglo-American law. And furthermore, in a criminal case, the accused has the right not only to a trial, but a speedy trial. And yes, this is technically not a criminal case, but even in a civil case, the litigants have the right to a trial. I mean, those rights are in our Constitution. So Speaker Pelosi is violating several parts of the Constitution. And what's more, this is all a political stunt. And perhaps it's one of the worst political stunts of all time. Pelosi's impeachment in the House revealed it to be a sham. And you can check out my column where I discuss it, where I talk about how the polls have changed. And the majority of Americans are now opposing impeachment because of what Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi and Jerry Nadler in the House Judiciary Committee and Adam Schiff in the House Intelligence Committee have done. And now Pelosi is even more overtly and directly violating the Constitution by infringing on the Senate's express constitutional power to try all impeachments. Now, before Pelosi announced her pause on transmitting the impeachment articles, the majority leader in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, he had declared that the House impeachment to be shoddy work, and he vowed to put this right. And that is the Senate's prerogative as the sole trier of impeachments. Now, once Pelosi announced her withholding of the articles of impeachment, McConnell took to the Senate floor and declared the prosecutors are getting cold feet in front of the entire country and second-guessing whether they even want to go to trial. They said impeachment was so urgent that it could not even wait for due process. But now they're content to sit on their hands. This is comical. Now, Pelosi fired back. I don't think anybody expected we would have a rogue president and a rogue leader in the Senate at the same time. Here is Nancy Pelosi accusing Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell of being rogue when he presides, when he is the majority leader, and they set the rules for impeachment trials according to the Constitution, and Pelosi has no role whatsoever in that very thing, yet Pelosi calls McConnell rogue. I mean, this is absolutely preposterous what Nancy Pelosi is doing here. And, of course, the media rushed to Pelosi's side, and we can get into that in a minute, but I want to take some of these calls. We have Mike from Mechanicsburg. You're on the Mark Scaringi Show.
Hey, how you doing, Mark?
Good, Mike. How are you?
Well, I would be good if it wasn't for this, as you said, sham of an impeachment.
Okay, so tell me what you think about it.
Well, just that it's a sham, and that everything that the Democrats have accused Mr. Trump and several other people of, they are very guilty of themselves, and we have the proof. I want to know why we aren't going after them. Mr. Biden publicly admitted to bribery and told the fellow that if he didn't believe him, call the president. So he implicated Obama in the same charges.
That's exactly right, and I think just that public statement alone is certainly reasonable suspicion that is sufficient to justify a criminal investigation of former Vice President Joe Biden. And I'm hopeful that this Department of Justice under Bill Barr has undertaken that very investigation.
Well, I sure hope so, too. And the only thing that makes it a little bit easier to take is I think they simply blew their own party up. I think Trump wins in a landslide this election.
I agree, Mike. And thanks for calling. I appreciate you calling in. It's Mike from Mechanicsburg, and I think he's right on target. The Democrats have so overreached to a remarkable degree, and they're going to get a lot more pushback, even more. It's almost as if Nancy Pelosi, in making that stunning announcement that she's going to delay or maybe won't even transmit the articles of impeachment over to the Senate, that is like doubling down on stupid. I mean, that's going to cause severe blowback and damage to her and her party, and be grounds for further conclusions to be reached by the American people that this impeachment is nothing more than a sham. And, of course, the media is on Nancy Pelosi's side. There's a New York Times article that goes out there that covers this story, this stunning development about Pelosi delaying or withholding, and the New York Times, they don't even cite the Constitution, which clearly states it's the Senate that has the sole power to try the impeachments. The House has the sole power to impeach. They impeached. It's done. He has been impeached. And now it's up to the Senate. And interesting, not interestingly, it's just so obvious what the Times' political bias is. The Times went on to say that at the White House on Thursday, there was some evidence that Mr. Trump was rattled by Ms. Pelosi's delay. Now, who out there thinks that Donald Trump is or was rattled by anything Nancy Pelosi has done? Donald Trump does not get rattled. He's not nervous. He's not wringing his hands. He's not afraid. He doesn't have fear. This man is just about the strongest man I've ever watched as history develops. He is not rattled by anything Nancy Pelosi does. And Trump just tweeted, "So after the Democrats gave me no due process in the House, no lawyers, no witnesses, no nothing, they now want to tell the Senate how to run their trial. Actually, they have zero proof of anything. They will never even show up. They want out. I want an immediate trial." That's a presidential tweet. So here we have an innocent man demanding a trial. How many people out there do you know who've been accused of crimes or high crimes and misdemeanors, serious misconduct that rises to that level, who are demanding a trial? This is further evidence that Trump wants to clear his name. But the Democrats are stymieing that effort. They're trying to stop him from doing so. Here we have an innocent man demanding a trial, and House Democrats are trying to prevent it. They're trying to deny a man the right to a trial. Does that even sound American to you? Does that sound like America to you? I should think not. We'll take one more quick phone call here. Russell from Colonial Park, you're on the Mark Scaringi Show. Go ahead, Russell. Russell, you're on the Mark Scaringi Show. Go ahead.
How you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Okay, I'm a little curious, the statute of limitations on that. Like, I think right now the Democrats are going to stonewall and hope that sometime here in the as soon future as they possibly can take over the Senate and possibly try to ram Trump through, even if it is in the next term.
Yeah,
is
that's
that a possibility, or?
Well, it is a possibility. Now, there's no statute of limitations that applies to impeachment. So there's nothing in the Constitution that has an expiration on the articles of impeachment. And, of course,
so even the fact that the terms, like if the term ends and he's elected for the second term, that wouldn't break it up. They wouldn't have to start all over again.
Oh, we are in the world of extreme speculation. I mean, the Constitution only has a few provisions, a few sentences and sentence fragments that cover impeachment. There's there's very little body of law on impeachment. We're really in a brave new world here, and that's why
setting the precedents. It's going to be insane.
That's right.
This is going to have that. Yeah, the future of American presidents, like it's going to. A lot of guys are not going to run. A lot of women are not going to run. Like you'd almost be a breakthrough after the way they terrorize them.
Well, I'll tell you, and this is why I'm arguing that here's what, if I were the Senate Majority Leader, if I were Mitch McConnell, I would do one of a couple of things. One, I would send a letter to the Speaker of the House, and I would say, you have 10 days to transfer those articles of impeachment to me and to name the House managers for the impeachment trial that we're about to conduct in the Senate. If you fail to do so within 10 days, we're going to dismiss the articles of impeachment, and they're gone. That's one option. Or the Senate Majority Leader could say, listen, he could take this position. The House of Representatives has voted to impeach President Trump on 2 articles of impeachment. He has been impeached. The role of the House is over. The Senate is now in charge. We are going to have a trial, and the first order of business in the trial could be a motion for non-pros, that the House didn't prosecute their case, and the charges are dismissed, or a directed verdict entered in favor of the president and against impeachment, or they could even just have a full vote and vote for acquittal. But if I were Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, if I were the Republicans, I would not let this lie. There are several Republicans who have been on the talk shows, and I've got to break for a commercial break, but I want to get back to this point when we get back from the commercial break. Russell from Colonial Park, thanks for calling. I appreciate that. Stay tuned. We'll be back right after this commercial break.
Now back to the Mark Scaringi Show on News Radio WHP 580.
And welcome back to the Mark Scaringi Show, your place on the dial for constitutional conservatism. This is the place where we talk about the important political and legal issues of the day from the perspective of putting America first. And I think that was You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet by Bachman Turner Overdrive. Well, you're bringing me back to my youth, back to the 1980s in suburban Pittsburgh. And we quasi-country boys, although really suburban boys, used to blare that tune as we drove around in our pickup trucks, acting like the all-American youth that we perceived ourselves to be. And welcome back to our listeners here on WHP 580 AM and iHeartRadio, and also on Harrisburg 100 Facebook Live and the various Facebook pages we've got going on. And welcome to our viewers through Facebook. And I like how when you log on to the Facebook to view the show, you announce your county, what county you're living in, which I think is great. And we just have another viewer from Crawford County, Pennsylvania. That's a beautiful county between Pittsburgh and Erie. And that's where Conneaut Lake is, I believe, and a lot of Pittsburghers back in the day, that was their vacation destination. And my grandparents used to go up there and spend some beautiful summer days alongside the lake up in Conneaut. So welcome to our viewers from Crawford County, Pennsylvania. And getting back to the topic of the show, the sham impeachment of this president of the United States. And the point I was making, we had some good calls, and we're kind of in a whole new world of impeachment law. Of course, there really isn't much impeachment law out there. It happens so rarely, and the Constitution is rather short and concise, terse, if you will. about what the rules of impeachment are. Nancy Pelosi has pulled off, I think, one of the biggest political stunts in the history of the country by presiding over the impeachment of a president of the United States, getting a vote by a majority of the members of the full House to impeach. The president has been impeached, and then saying, well, maybe not. We're going to delay. I'm going to wait and see before I transfer these articles over to the Senate. I'm going to wait and see how things develop in the Senate. I'm going to wait and see if we Democrats get a fair trial. Are Democrats a party in this impeachment action? That's preposterous. You have the Senate that sits as the judge and the jury, and you have the accused. That's the president. Those are the parties in the impeachment trial. And we've heard, if you watched the news shows, Senator Rick Scott from Florida, United States Senator Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee, they're taking the position that the Senate should do nothing in response to Pelosi delaying or ultimately perhaps refusing to send over the articles. And I say, no. Do not give Democrats a victory here. Nancy Pelosi has impeached this president. Democrats have impeached him. Even if they do not send over the articles, for the rest of our lives, we're going to hear about how President Trump was impeached. Don't go for these hyper semantic arguments presented by these liberal legal professors who are all in favor of removing this man from office. Don't go along with their arguments that, no, the president really hasn't been impeached. And I see a lot of Republicans, conservatives, taking that position. No, the president hasn't been impeached. Trust me, he has been impeached. Don't let the Democrats wiggle out of it. Don't let them walk it back. They have made an historic blunder by impeaching this man for fake crimes, for non-crimes, for not even misconduct. They've impeached this man for him carrying out his constitutional duty to make sure that Joe Biden wasn't corrupt when he was in charge of giving U.S. aid to Ukraine, and his son was on the board of governors of an entirely corrupt company. The president is the chief law enforcement officer of the United States. He's duty-bound by the Constitution to ensure that our laws are carried out faithfully, that they're faithfully executed. That's his constitutional duty, to investigate credible allegations of corruption. Do not let the Democrats off the hook. This is blowing up in their face. So the Republicans in the Senate should grab a hold of this, and they should say, okay, you've impeached him. Thank you, Democrats in the House. Thank you, Speaker Pelosi. Your job is done. The Constitution says the Senate now has sole and exclusive power to try the impeachment. He's been impeached. And as I was explaining to an earlier caller, if the Democrats do not want to prosecute this case, just have the Senate vote and say it's dismissed on non-pros. That happens in civil court, by the way. That happens in civil court across the country all of the time. If the plaintiff who has filed the complaint, who has made the allegations, made the accusations in court, doesn't move their complaint through court, doesn't move it up and through trial, then as the defendant, you can knock them out you file a motion for non-pros. And a judge says, hey, plaintiff, hey, Democrats, hey, Speaker Pelosi, why aren't you prosecuting your case? You brought one. You filed the complaint. You made these allegations. You made these accusations. Now you better back it up or get out of my court. And that's what the majority leader of the Senate, that's what the Republicans in the Senate should do. They should say, Democrats, House Democrats, you impeached him, but now you're not going to prosecute the case. It's dismissed. Done. That's what Republicans should do in the Senate, because for the rest of our lives, the Democrats are going to say Trump was impeached. And we need to be able to say, yes, he was impeached, but the impeachment was dismissed. The impeachment was rejected by the Senate. It was thrown out of court. Or The majority leader could say, House Democrats, you've impeached him. Thank you. Your job is done. Look at the Constitution. You have the sole power to impeach. You've conducted your impeachment. You voted to impeach. Job's done. Thank you. We now have the sole power to conduct the trial. And House Democrats, thank you. You're all wonderful people. God bless you. But we don't need you here. You have no right to intervene in the Senate proceedings. The Constitution is very clear. Your job is done. Convene the Senate, start the trial, move for acquittal immediately, and acquit him because he committed no crime. He committed no misconduct at all, let alone misconduct that rises to the level of a high crime or misdemeanor. Acquit the man. That's what the Senate Republicans should do. Because for the rest of our lives, Democrats and liberals are going to say Trump was impeached. And we need to be able to say, yeah, but he was acquitted. He was acquitted. The presumption of innocence was maintained, and this man was acquitted of any crimes. So we're going to take a quick call here. We have Dave from Camp Hill. You're on the Mark Scaringi Show.
Hey, Dave. Mark.
Yes, Dave. Go ahead.
Hi, Mark. It's Dave Gary. How you been?
Very well. Very well. How about you?
Okay, very good. Hey, I've got a real interesting thing to talk to everybody about, the new freshman Democrats. Over half of the new freshman Democrats that won in conservative districts are actually CIA agents.
Oh, really?
Yes.
All right. Well, Dave, thanks for that fact.
And also, they also ran a lot of other CIA agents in other districts that they did not win. But think about it, this was a big program, a coordinated effort they had to get these Democrats in. This is why they're voting for impeachment. They're freshman Democrats. This is political suicide. Why are you doing it? They don't care. They got paid and they got supported in order to do this, to get in there and impeach the president. And we need to be more vocal. But this was out about a year ago on MSNBC. They tried to spin it as something positive. These guys are doing their duty. They're patriots. But there's a couple websites out there that have quite detailed articles on this topic, and it's something we need to bring to attention. I even tried to call a couple senators and didn't get through. But everybody, please spread the news.
Will do. Dave, thanks. Dave from Camp Hill, thanks for calling. We've got some other callers lined up. We want to try to get them on before the end of the show. We appreciate that. But I also want to try to finish the point that I'm making here because I'm not pleased to see the positioning of Republicans in the Senate and that they just want to kind of let this thing alone, that if Nancy Pelosi is not going to bring it over, let sleeping dogs lie is their position. And I think that is the wrong position because for the rest of history, the Democrats are going to claim that the president was impeached and we declined to submit the articles of impeachment to the Senate because the Senate was obviously biased and unfair and stacked against Democrats and in favor of the president. They'll allege that there's collusion between the president and the majority leader, and that's why the Democrats couldn't get a fair trial in the Senate. But by gosh, they impeached this man, and that's the position they're going to take. And we have to prevent that. And by the way, the accused himself, the president of the United States, is demanding a trial. As I say, it's un-American to demand any person accused of committing any crime or conducting any civil wrong or civil injury or wrongdoing or wrongful conduct. It's un-American to deny that person a trial, to vindicate himself, to protest and to show and declare his innocence. That's what America is all about. And we have witnessed so much abuse of the rule of law in this country by the Obama administration and some of the kind of hangers-on that continued and went into the Trump administration. And we have to stand up and speak out right now to bring it to a dramatic and quick and decisive halt, because President Trump is an innocent man. Well, that's about all the time we have today for the Mark Scaringi Show. I want to thank you for listening, for tuning in on WHP 580 AM and iHeartRadio every Saturday at 1 o'clock, and also for tuning in to the Facebook Live and Harrisburg 100. Thank you.